When we are talking about incest, it is something that is always repeated. So hardly would you see that it is one of them. So when it happens, and then sometimes the perpetrator say, "Oh, I won't do that again," it's a lie. You don't just take that and say, "Okay, that is fine," and you still leave your child with such a person. It's wrong. Okay.
What you were talking about, the self harm, there was a case that one of the girls was rushed to the hospital, and what she did was razor blades, she
Mhm,
was
mhm.
cutting them into tiny pieces and putting them inside her vagina.
Yes.
She said, then no one will come
Yes.
and have access.
Yes. Uh, a young lady, and then she has tried taking her life 3 times.
Wow.
Yes, she's tried, and it is because she was being abused by his own father.
Hello, viewers. You're welcome back to another exciting, educative episode on incest. The last time we came, we discussed what incest is with the help of our naval lieutenant. He gave us an overview of what incest is. Not only that, we looked at the different types of incest and the perception from the religious side, the cultural side, and the psychological side. Today, we want to go deeper into it. We want to look at the victim. We want to look at the symptoms of the victim. We want to look at the family, how this affect them. And then moving forward, what can they do and what are the resources available? What are the treatments that are available out there? So you're welcome back to another amazing episode with me. I have the ever handsome dark chocolate naval lieutenant Thomas Nti Amwako. You're welcome.
Thank you.
So we continue with this conversation because we want to look at it in a deeper level, not only for the victim, but also for the family and what is the way forward. So the question we will ask is, what are the symptoms of incestual relationship, especially on the victim?
Okay. So the last time we met, the
Mm.
first episode, I remember we talked about the fact that sometimes it can be consensual and
Mm-hmm.
then it can be non-consensual. So usually with the non-consensual ones, one thing that, or some of the things that would be so prevalent that you would see with regard to the physical symptoms, something that is very observable that you see. One, you can hear the person complaining of vaginal pain. Okay. Now you can also talk about the fact that rectal pain, because some of them they go the other way. It's not
All right.
only through vagina
Okay.
that they try to engage with those people. So you can talk about vaginal pain. So you can have someone and then the person is complaining, a child complaining that this part of my body is paining me. I have pains here. Sometimes they'll be holding it. So as a mother or as a relative, it should tell you something. Okay, you have to investigate. Now we can also talk about vaginal discharge because they are of that age and then they're not so ready for those kind of activities. Usually you see that they have some kind of discharges coming from their vagina. Then we can talk about chronic dysuria. So when they are urinating, it comes with pain. So you'd realize that a child or an adolescent and then they are trying to urinate and then they are complaining of pains. Okay. And then bedwetting, that is one of the, so you see sometimes you would have a child who right from the formative years they never had that kind of experience bedwetting, but then after some time
Mm-hmm.
then they start getting it.
Mm.
So it tells you, yes, we have some, and then right from the infancy they were like bedwetting, they
Mm.
have bedwetting. But then you can also have people where the onset of the bedwetting is quite late. So
Mm.
maybe they were never used to wetting their bed, and then they get to 10 years, and then they start 11 years. You should just prick your mind that you should look at it. You should try to see what is going on. Okay. So we are in no way trying to say that when all of a sudden your child is bedwetting, it means that someone is abusing, but then it means that you have to look at it. Okay, so that is it for the physical symptoms, and then sometimes they also complain of constipation. Okay, so they are unable to pass stool and then all those kind of things. These are the physical symptoms that comes with these abuses. Okay, then we can also talk about psychological symptoms that you see in the victims. Now we are talking about the victims. But before we look at the psychological symptoms, I want to reiterate the fact that when we are talking about incest, it is something that is always repeated. So hardly would you see that it is one of them. So when it happens, and then sometimes the perpetrator say, "Oh, I won't do that again," it's a lie. You don't just take that and say, "Okay, that is fine," and you still leave your child with such a person. It's wrong. Okay, so you have to know that it is something that is repeated. Now, research have also given us some kind of profile, as in those who are likely to do that. Now, they are saying that usually fathers who do that,
Mm-hmm.
okay, they are very immature psychologically, they're not matured. Now, such people also have low self-esteem.
Mm-hmm.
Majority of them, they have low self-esteem, and also in marriages or relationship where the mother is kind of having some kind of problems, sometimes mental problems. The mother is depressed, the mother is quite absent with regard to the family because they are having issues on their own. So
Yeah.
when it happens that way, then we're saying that it increases the likelihood that a father will do that. So that is the profile that we've seen
Mm-hmm.
for fathers who try to engage in those acts with their children. Then we can also talk about the psychological symptoms, as I mentioned. Now, it is key. Now, the first one is deliberate self harm. So
Mm.
you'd realize that they are there and then they want to harm themselves. Sometimes you come and there is a cat. Okay, you ask why. I just wanted to. Sometimes they're unable to explain the reason of harming themselves. Okay, but they are in pain. And looking at the situation, they know that even if they come out to talk about it, you might not even believe them.
Mm.
So, because of the pain, sometimes they would tend to be causing harm to themselves. Okay, now you can also talk about the victims having nightmares. They will sleep and then they're unable to sleep because they're having dreams that are quite scary. And so you'd have a lot of them also having sleep problems. Okay. Now you can also talk about aggressive behavior.
Mm.
So all of a sudden, then your child is aggressive. So if the father is talking to this because of what has happened, then they are aggressive towards the father. Okay. And then we can also talk about withdrawal. So they tend to isolate themselves from everybody, and it is because they are being abused. So they don't want to be in the midst of others. So when everybody is sitting around, they would want to be in the room alone, isolated because of what is going on. And the fact that they can't come out to talk about it. It is not something that they really like, but then it is happening to them and they feel like they are being gagged because
Mm-hmm.
the perpetrator is still there.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime they are seeing them, so they see them and then even they are afraid, the kind
Mm-hmm.
of fear.
Mm.
So all these things will lead to what we are saying. And then one key thing is poor concentration. So if they are at school going age, you realize that the academics will drop. So someone who was initially good, you realize that with time, the academics is
Mm. The
dropping.
grades are
Yeah, the
dropping.
grades, everything is going down because of the abuse. Okay. Now we can also talk about precocious sexual behaviors. Now, all that we are saying about here is that you see, they are kids,
Mm-hmm.
and then they are being introduced to these behaviors that are supposed to be for adults.
Adults,
Now,
yeah.
you'd realize that after they going through this, they will try to have a similar activity with their peers.
Oh, they become now the
Yes,
perpetrators.
with but they don't know that that is what they are doing, but they
That's
try to do it So if it is kissing, you realize that they are kissing, touching the buttocks, touching, they are trying
Mm.
to out those
Those things,
behaviors with
yes.
their peers. Okay, but then you see them and you say, no, you are young. How do you get to know about this? Okay, so these are some of the signs and symptoms that when we see in our case, it should prick us. It should tell us that no, there might be something wrong.
Mm.
Just try to have some kind of uh, good time to observe and ask questions. Okay,
Mm.
so basically, these are some of the symptoms that you see with
Mm.
regard to the victims that would tell you or give you an indication that you have to probe further.
Yeah, once you were talking about the self-harm, there was a case that one of the girls was rushed to the hospital, and what she did was razor blades. She
Mhm,
was
mhm.
cutting them into tiny pieces and putting them inside her vagina.
Yes,
She said, then no one will come
yes,
and have access.
yes.
But she didn't say who is coming to have
Mhm.
access. And they were like probing further to she said, no, once I put it there,
No one
then I'm
can.
safe. No one will
Yes,
come because it will be an injury for them. They don't
yes,
like the pain. I can take the pain to prevent that from happening. So it means then that this thing is not something that is just so, people can just look at it and say, oh, it happened, it's okay.
no,
It take its toll on the victims.
yes,
And talking about children disclosing that means that parents should create an environment where they can talk to their children and believe what they are saying. I'm sure as we cover this, there are instances that families don't trust the children and
yes.
they blame them. So, before we go into how it affects the victim, what about families in issues like this when they notice these things? What's their response? What are you advising?
Okay, so you see, in our culture, you'd realize that as you mentioned, now sometimes you'd have children trying to confide in their parents, and then the belief is not there. So I've seen a number of cases where you ask, is your mother aware? And say, yes, I've informed her, but then she is saying that no, it can't be done, and then they are trying to protect the family. So that is something, that is why a lot of them engage in the self-harm, and also sometimes they have suicidal ideations because they feel like no one even trusts me. I'm going
Mm,
through this.
mm,
Whenever I try to come out, no one
mm,
is there to even stand by me.
mm,
So you'd realize that most families, not all, but
mm,
then most families will try to cover it. And then they are only neglecting the victim. It is causing so much harm. And as I mentioned, it's not something that is one of thing.
mm,
So you see that okay, but then the next time the perpetrator will try it again. And even if not on that victim, they try on the younger ones. So you might think that okay, this person I've removed this person from
mm,
this family, but then what about your other daughters?
mm. They're still
So
exposed to the
yes,
risk
they are
of
still
them being
exposed. So
abused.
it is something that we have to take it very serious when it happens. You can't brush it off.
Mm,
And one thing is that in Ghana it's quite serious because we don't have the systems working. Elsewhere, when you suspect that a child is being abused and then the child is being engaged in such relationships, you can call the police.
mhm,
The social welfare will come in. They will
mhm,
just come and take the child from the family. But in Ghana, it doesn't work.
mm,
Now, if you make the mistake of going to report,
mm,
I've seen cases where it was reported to DOVSU
mhm.
in the morning, in the evening, the perpetrator was back home.
They have their way.
Yes. Sometimes they will take money from the perpetrators now and then they will release them. Sometimes they will just say or try to rubbish it off and say, don't do that. And then now you realize that now the perpetrator is coming back to the victim.
Mhm,
And most of the times they're alone. So
mhm.
what do you expect?
Yeah, it's going to be more severe.
Yes, causing
Mm,
more harm.
mm, mm,
Okay, so the systems are not quite favorable for us, but
mm,
then elsewhere you can just report, the child will be taken from the family and
Mm-hmm.
then they will be given a proper care.
Mm.
But here, sometimes you would have to even uh, engage or involve other family members because you have to get a
Mm.
place for the child.
Mm-hmm.
Because as where I sit, I can't take the person to my house.
No.
So everything ends at the clinic. So you have
They
to,
go back to the
yes,
same place where
the
they've been
same thing.
abused.
Yes.
Yeah, the
And then,
cycle just repeats
yes.
itself.
So
Yeah.
that is a problem that we have with such cases,
All
basically.
right. So, what's the impact on the victim? How does it impact them? We look at the symptoms. How does it impact their life in terms of relationship, in terms of their mental health, their well-being? How does it impact them?
Okay. So now the impact is very crucial and it is quite serious when you're talking about this kind of behavior, incest. Now, it has been shown through clinical investigations that it affects their personality, the victim, their behavior. Now, you'd realize that some of them will develop certain characters. Now, research and studies shows that one, some of them can become promiscuous and then engage in prostitution.
Mm.
Majority of them.
Wow.
So they've gone through that and then they don't trust the world. Even the father is doing this. And
Mm-hmm.
then sometimes, because of the relationship, the father will be like, if I don't sleep with you, I'm not paying your school fees.
Mm-hmm.
Now they get the perception that, okay, so I have to use my body to get
Mm.
something that I
Yeah,
want. And
definitely.
then they engage in this
Mm.
kind of behaviors. Now, some of them will be very frigid. Now, frigid
Mm.
means that they are very cold.
Just cool.
Cold, nothing concerns
They are
them.
not moved by anything.
Nothing. So even
No
if they
emotions.
nothing, even if they get to a point where they marry,
Mm.
they are withdrawn. Sex, drive down, everything, they are just there.
Mm.
They are cold. So you can also talk about the fact that some of them would develop some kind of personality disorders, antisocial personality disorders, where you would see that they can be very aggressive and cruel to others,
Mm-hmm.
and then they can be very manipulative. Okay,
Mm.
so because they have that frigid, the
Mm-hmm.
cold, when they are doing something and it's harming you, they don't care, they don't even feel it. So they can do something and it's harming you, and nothing praise them. They
Mm.
are cool. That they don't they like they've gotten to
A
the
state.
stage where
Yeah.
nothing really bothers them. Okay, so if you're not lucky and then you go and meet someone like this or
I'm
in a
just
relationship
imagining. I'm
or
just
in
imagining.
marriage, you'd
Yes.
realize that
You are in for something.
yes. So these are some of the uh, impacts that we normally see. And then in addition to that, you can also have people who will be having some kind of suicidal ideations or experiences. Now, I remember I had a case like that, and then uh, a young lady, and then she has tried taking her life 3 times.
Wow.
Yes, she's tried, and it is because she was being abused by her own father. So that is it. And then some of them would also have compulsive spending, so they spend a lot. Okay. And then it is kind of a way of reacting to the
Mm.
kind of trauma and the kind of roller coaster of emotions that they are going through.
Mm.
So they engage in that. And then some of them would also have what they call PTSD. They'll be having flashbacks. So you realize that they are there and then they have flashes of the incident.
Mm-hmm.
And because it wasn't a one off thing, it
Mm.
becomes serious.
Mm.
You see, when you're talking about PTSD, a traumatic event, now usually it's only once, but
Mm.
then this one it has been occurring,
Repeated for years.
so it becomes very serious for them, and then getting out of that state becomes a problem. So when we're talking about the impact, this is basically what we
Mm.
see in such, and you see, because it is something affecting their personality, it is very difficult working with them because it has been built over the time. So when you come to our field, personality disorders, it takes time. Yes,
Mm.
you can do something about it, but it takes time. Sometimes you even see clinicians running from it because
Mm.
it takes time before you can see a change.
Mm.
So it is just telling us that the impact is very serious and
Mm.
then it can cause a long lasting damage on
Mm.
that victim.
Yeah, so I was just wondering, with all that you've described, affecting their whole well-being, their mental health, psychological and social skills, and sexual life. So getting married to a person like that without prior investigation, having a conversation on their past and in their background will be a challenge as a couple. But also sometimes, I'm just thinking, how do you go to any relationship and start disclosing this also? So I am a victim of incest. I've been raped by my father several times for 13 years. It puts a man off.
Yes,
So you find yourself in a situation where you want to disclose, but you're
you
not
don't.
sure if you disclose if the person will continue the relationship.
Mhm.
Already you disclose, they know this thing that you are struggling with, but they can't offer help. So it's complex, isn't it?
Yes, very complex. And you see, I've seen cases where they are married.
Mm-hmm.
They are ladies, they are married, and then they are still battling this, and then their husbands are not aware.
Wow.
Yes. So they'll come and then, as a therapist, you would have a way of getting to know some of this information. But then they will tell you that, "Oh, don't tell my husband, or don't inform my husband." And it is because of the stigma attached.
Yes,
So
exactly.
sometimes they don't really know how the husband will take it,
Mm-hmm.
how everything is going to be accepted. So they think that, okay, if it is kept secret from the man, maybe they will just have to find a way of dealing with it. Okay.
Mm.
So sometimes it happens, and basically it's because of how we
Mm-hmm.
as people we are trying to relate when we have such information, the kind of reactions that we give. So if it is coming with some kind of stigmatization, now you realize a lot of people are not willing to come out to say that, oh, I've
That's so
been
true, yeah.
this, I've been through this, and then this is what I'm battling with. But
Mm.
then there is help out there.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
it is not as if that if you've been in that state, there's nothing that you can do.
Mm.
So there is also help.
I think that's one of the reasons we're doing these things like people don't want to talk about, but we know there are people out there suffering in
Mhm.
silence. There's help out there. They will create the awareness, the education, also see how we can have systems put in place to help the victims because you can't do this alone. And if the partners get involved, that means they have to be patient because it's going to be a long term
Yeah.
recovery that they need every day. And some people are not willing to put up with that.
Mhm.
So it's difficult for the victims and also for the family
Yes.
who are trying to maybe seek justice or support. How will they deal with that? You talk about ostracization. Maybe the family ostracize them.
Mhm.
You and your mom find a way out. You can bring this our
Yes.
reputation down.
Mhm.
Our community will not accept people like this. So you're framing him, you're making a story out of nothing, things like that. So how does one move forward then from
Okay.
this? What's the treatment available, therapy, and what is it that is available?
Okay. So yes, there's treatment or help available. So now, with people who have been through this kind of condition, now we have therapies that can help them.
Okay.
So basically, such people, because as I mentioned, they would have what you call a personality disorder. They
Mm,
are going to have something that is going to affect their behavior.
mm,
Now, each one and then the symptoms that or the impact that they will come with. So, based on that, we would have a formulation for that specific person. So, it could be that you can have someone and then the person is depressed because of this,
mm-hmm,
and then it has been there for a long time. So, we will tackle that using CBT. Then it could be that this person is having some kind of behavioral problems. Like, for instance, when you're talking about the personality disorders,
mm,
now you can use uh, cases and you can use treatments like motivational interviewing. Now, what we are looking out for is that you see, most of them they are not really aware of the kind of things that they are doing. Okay. Because, like, for instance, they're in a relationship and because they've been very frigid, they are cold.
mm,
So they don't even, they are not aware that, okay, I'm cold to you.
Oh, I see.
So in treatment, we try to bring them to that state where they are aware of their surroundings because they've been through a lot and then they feel isolated and they are doing things that would affect, they would benefit only them. So they find it very difficult to take up your kind of view. So they don't think about you.
Hmm.
It's what they will get and then that is it. So
Yeah.
you can have someone and then they are very manipulative. Okay, so in treatment, we try to help them to get to a point where they come to the realization that these are the effects of the incest that they went through, the sexual abuse that they went through, and then these are some behaviors that we can change
Mm.
because sometimes they don't even have that insight to even come for therapy
Yeah. Yeah.
because they've been through a lot and then they've gotten the perception that oh, that is how it is and then no one is going to help, even their own mothers never believed them.
So
How
who then
much
will believe me
a
outside?
stranger
Yeah,
will
it's
believe and
true.
then
It's true.
so they are in their world and then it is only when they are trying to have some kind of families or relationship,
All right.
it's not working and then they will come in. So it is only through therapy that we would help them to see that this is something that you've been going through and then you've not dealt with it. It's still the deep seated.
Hmm.
So until you deal with that pain
Hmm.
before you can move on to have the kind of change that you're looking for.
So they come to the therapy not because they want to resolve the trauma or the experience. Like
No.
most of them, it's something that pushes
Yes.
them.
Basically.
And then when they come now, they realize that
Yes. Yes.
the thing that is causing you trouble is the
Hmm.
trauma that you've
Yes.
been through.
Yes.
And then you have the opportunity.
To
So basically, it's trauma, it's
yes.
therapy,
Hmm.
and then you have support groups.
Yes. So we
Okay.
sometimes we do use support groups to help. So like-minded people who are suffering from
Mm.
similar this thing, and then we can engage them,
Mm.
and then it's also very helpful.
All right. That's
Yes.
good. So just give us your last word, even as we wrap up the session. It's been so insightful and I've learned so much. What's your last word to those who are victims? Where can they get help available in Accra, in Ghana? And also, where can they find you? Because I know with our conversation, you talked about having pay clients like that who are coming from a background like this that you're dealing with. What's your last word?
Okay, so my last word would be the fact that incest is quite serious.
Mm,
Now, when it is happening, most of the times you don't know the grievous impact of it. We think that oh, it's okay. Then sometimes the clients would, after they've moved from that, they think that everything is fine.
mm,
So as I mentioned earlier on, it is only when they are trying to build a family,
mm,
and then they are even finding it difficult to trust people. So sometimes they will come to clinic with that complaint, but they will never talk about the fact that they were abused when they were young. So now there is help out there. So when you know that you've been through such experience before, now you might want to see any mental health professional. We have clinical psychologists that you can see, a psychiatrist, any hospital that we have these professionals, you can see them. They will take you through a number of assessments and then they will start treatment with you. So
mm.
37 military hospital, we have a department there, and then we have a number of attitude clinical psychologists and then psychiatrists that if the need be, we can be of help,
Yeah, so
basically.
some people they don't want to go to the hospital and go to that department
Yes,
because they will be labeled.
sure.
So they just want a private
Yes,
consultation. Do you
yes, it's
have
true.
those services
Yes.
available?
So I also have Serene Consult.
Okay,
It's a private mental
that's
health.
your
Yes,
Syrian
yes,
consult. Okay.
yes. That
Mm, mm,
if the need be, if you
mm.
don't want the
The public one,
public one,
yeah.
the private one is also there.
Okay. So I love the name Syrian.
Yes,
Brings about the
yes,
peace,
yes,
tranquility.
yes.
All right, that is so deep, really, really deep. So, viewers, as you yourself can testify, incest thrives because of secrecy. It thrives because of manipulation. It thrives because people are not aware, and even victims struggle to get their voice heard. It is important that victims and family work together and encourage the victims to seek a professional help. It's going to be, it impacts life in a different way. So it is important that once you notice this, you seek professional help. The reason why I'm stressing on professional help because they are qualified to create a space for you where you can talk openly without being judged or ostracized. Secondly, they provide the support needed, not only the therapy, but they have support groups as well. And they'll also give the families the skills that they need to work with you during this long time of getting your therapy. At the end of all this, you will celebrate life in recovery because you have recovered fully well. And you can become an ambassador then to create awareness, to campaign that there are structures be put in place that are very effective to address this sensitive but quiet issue that people are suffering in silence. This is Sex in the Temple, and my name is Monique.